Milwaukee, a city that wakes in peace but sleeps beside the echoes of its own darkness. A son emptying 31 bullets into his father. A store clerk collapses behind the counter over a pizza dispute. A manager stuffed into a trash bin behind a restaurant. And a bridge argument ending with a single, fatal shot. Each crime scene soaked in silence and blood, each verdict stretching decades behind bars, yet no sentence can return the voices lost to rage, greed, and impulse. And this is Inside Milwaukee's most notorious black killers, shocking murders, and true crime cases. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Travis Birkley. A quiet Milwaukee morning can hide a truth no one is prepared to find. The case of Travis Lamar Birkley began with a duplex on North 21st Street, where 6 people were shot and left undiscovered for days. Investigators later described the killings as the result of a robbery that spiraled violently out of control. Birkley, then 34, had lived less than a mile from the residence where the victims, Charles Hardy, Caleb Jordan, Giovanni Liddell, Donta Williams, Michelle Williams, and Donald Smith, were found. According to prosecutors, he and his cousin entered the home on the 20th of January 2022, intending to rob Donta Williams, who was known to sell synthetic marijuana and had been seen counting thousands of dollars online. Inside the upper unit, the plan collapsed immediately. Detectives stated that Michelle Williams stepped forward from a blind corner to protect her husband and was the first shot. Donta was killed moments later. Casings from 2 9mm handguns showed that more than one weapon was used. The assailants then moved downstairs, where Hardy, Jordan, and Liddell were shot. Witness testimony indicated Birkley said they had to be shot to eliminate witnesses. Donald Smith, believed to have heard the gunfire, was found upstairs under a pile of clothing with gunshot wounds and sharp force injuries. The house appeared ransacked, with items scattered across rooms as if someone had been searching for money. 3 days passed before anyone entered the home. On January 23, responding officers encountered rigor mortis throughout the residence. A witness first discovered the 3 bodies in the basement and called police, leading officers upstairs to the remaining victims. Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson called the discovery horrific, a sentiment widely echoed as news spread. Detectives quickly identified leads. Hours before the victims were found, a woman called 911 claiming she had been shot alongside others, giving an address nearly identical to the murder scene but off by several blocks. Investigators traced the call to a residence where Birkley was located. The woman later said Birkley had instructed her on what to say. A more damning piece of evidence emerged when detectives found a selfie on Birkley's phone taken on the morning of the killings, showing him in the basement where 3 bodies were later found. Witnesses identified the eyeglasses he wore in the photo as belonging to Donta Williams. Cell data placed him at the crime scene, and a confidential witness stated Birkley admitted involvement in a robbery gone bad. Birkley was charged in June 2022 with 6 counts of felony murder. His cash bond was set at $1 million, but by January 2023, the court ruled him incompetent to stand trial and unlikely to regain competency. From this case emerge enduring cautions: avoid displaying cash or valuables online, report suspicious activity immediately, and be wary of individuals whose behavior shifts abruptly around criminal opportunities. In the end, the duplex stands as a reminder of how swiftly greed can erase 6 lives. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. Djuan Eskridge. A quiet Milwaukee morning would soon echo with a sound no family could ever forget: 31 gunshots that tore through generations. At the center of this tragedy was Djuan Eskridge, later convicted of killing his father, 53-year-old William Eskridge, in one of Wisconsin's most harrowing domestic shootings. The violence unfolded on the 9th of October 2023, inside a home near North 7th Street and Melvina Avenue. It began not with weapons, but with words, an argument that spiraled in seconds into irreversible destruction. According to investigators, Djuan had been furious after being kicked out of his grandmother's home. He arrived there with his brother and 2 others, threatening violence against her. As tension rose, William stepped between his sons, saying, "Ain't nobody gonna do nothing to my mother." It was his final act of protection. Moments later, Djuan drew a gun and opened fire. Surveillance footage later revealed what police described as deliberate, repeated gunfire. Even after his father collapsed, Djuan stepped closer and continued shooting. The medical examiner counted 31 wounds, striking the head, chest, abdomen, pelvis, and limbs, piercing major organs including the lungs, heart, and aorta. William never had a chance to defend himself. After the barrage ended, Djuan fled the scene on foot. Milwaukee police responded within minutes to reports of rapid gunfire. They found William lifeless on the ground beside 15 shell casings, all fired from a single handgun. Witnesses, including the grandmother, identified Djuan as the shooter. Detectives obtained home surveillance video showing every key moment, from Djuan's first shot to his brief pause and fatal return to fire again. For 3 months, Djuan remained a fugitive. Detectives issued multiple warrants, and U.S. Marshals eventually tracked him down on the 17th of January 2024. The next day, he appeared before a Milwaukee County judge, emotionless and silent as prosecutors outlined the evidence. His bond was set at $200,000. Initially charged with first-degree reckless homicide, the case proceeded to trial in September 2024, where a jury found him guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. On the 10th of January 2025, Djuan, now 20, stood in court again, this time to hear his sentence. Wearing standard jail clothing, his eyes fixed on the floor as the judge sentenced him to life in prison. "You didn't just kill him," said the victim's aunt, Rosalind Jackson, addressing the court. "You overkilled him. This has devastated our entire family." Neighbors described hearing a lot of gunfire, not a small amount, a sound that lingered long after police tape came down. The community, shaken by the brutality, saw the case as a painful reflection of how quickly domestic anger can turn lethal. From tragedies like this arise sobering truths: seek distance when tempers erupt, call authorities before arguments escalate, and secure firearms away from emotional or unstable hands. These small steps can be the line between conflict and catastrophe. In the end, this case reminds us that rage unleashed in seconds can leave a silence that lasts a lifetime. Number 3. Charles J. Leggett. It began with a simple argument inside a small Milwaukee convenience store, a dispute over gloves that ended in a single, fatal shot. The case of 39-year-old Charles J. Leggett stands as one of the city's most senseless killings, driven not by revenge or robbery but by rage over what he called unsanitary food handling. On the 19th of October 2024, just before noon, Leggett entered the Action Food and Liquor store on North Dr. Martin Luther King Drive and ordered a pizza from clerk Jamil I. Aouis, a 26-year-old Palestinian immigrant who had come to the United States seeking a better life. What followed was captured in chilling clarity by store surveillance cameras. Leggett, visibly agitated, walked toward the back of the store where a cook was preparing his pizza without gloves. Moments later, he returned to the counter, furious. Witnesses heard him argue with Aouis, demanding that someone else remake the pizza the right way. Aouis, who had worked there part-time to help his brother's business, refused and reportedly told Leggett he would do something if the shouting continued. The exchange escalated in seconds. Video footage showed Leggett gesturing angrily, reaching into his right pocket where the grip of a handgun was visible, and then leaning across the counter. Without warning, he pressed the gun to Aouis' chest and pulled the trigger. Aouis fell immediately, gasping for air as Leggett turned and ran from the store. The bullet casing landed in a candy box near the register. Within minutes, Milwaukee police officers arrived, finding Aouis unresponsive behind the counter. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Detectives secured the surveillance footage, which offered a near-perfect view of the shooter's face and the license plate of the black Nissan Sentra he used to flee. By afternoon, investigators matched the image to prior booking photos through facial recognition. That evening, officers found the Nissan parked near 27th and Juneau and arrested Leggett without resistance. During interrogation, after being read his Miranda rights, Leggett confessed. He admitted throwing away his clothes and confirmed that Aouis never had a weapon. Police later recovered the handgun and a pair of Croc-style shoes matching those seen in the footage. In October 2025, after a 3-day trial, a Milwaukee County jury deliberated for less than 30 minutes before convicting Leggett of first-degree intentional homicide with a dangerous weapon and possession of a firearm by a felon. At sentencing, scheduled for December 17, Judge David L. Borowski is expected to impose a mandatory life sentence. The victim's brother, Muhammad Owais, called the killing an unbearable loss. To take someone's life for no reason, that is unacceptable, he said. Tragedies like this one reveal the fragility of impulse. Recognizing when anger spirals beyond reason, disengaging from escalating disputes, and never carrying a weapon into volatile environments are steps that can save lives. In the end, one fleeting moment of fury erased a future and left a silence no apology can ever fill. Number 4, Kavonn Ingram. It started as just another shift at a South Milwaukee Pizza Hut until a manager simply vanished without a trace. The man behind his disappearance was 31-year-old Kavonn Ingram, a Pizza Hut employee with a prior felony conviction. His victim, 55-year-old Alexander Stengel, had managed that restaurant for 33 years, known for his reliability and quiet dedication. On the 5th of February 2024, their working relationship ended in violence inside the very kitchen where Stengel had spent half his life. The motive was disturbingly simple: money. Stengel had recently received a $7,000 inheritance and had shown some of it to coworkers, including Ingram. That morning, the restaurant's security cameras captured what investigators later described as a calculated killing. Stengel was shot once in the head at point-blank range, followed by puncture wounds to his neck and skull. Prosecutors later revealed that Ingram had discussed the idea of placing a gun to the head because the head works as a silencer. After the shooting, he wrapped the victim's body in garbage bags, forced it into a 55-gallon trash can, and wheeled it out to the dumpster area behind the building. Nearby Taco Bell surveillance footage caught Ingram dragging the can at 10:25 a.m. Ingram returned to the kitchen, cleaned a patch of floor that stood out as unnaturally spotless, clocked Stengel out of work at 10:50, and texted the store manager from Stengel's phone pretending to be ill, saying he was throwing up a little blood. By 11:01, bus footage showed Ingram leaving the area with both his and Stengel's phones. 2 days later, a garbage truck driver discovered the body behind the restaurant. A trail of dried blood led investigators from the dumpster back inside, where they found coagulated blood in a mop sink, stains on a mop handle, and smears on the light switch. The surveillance timeline, text messages, and phone data all pointed to Ingram. When police searched his apartment on February 11, his girlfriend asked immediately, "Is this about Alex?" and revealed Ingram had mentioned Stengel being found with nothing on him, a detail not publicly known. Police found a Taurus 9mm handgun in Ingram's backpack, confirmed as the murder weapon, and blood-stained towels in the bathroom. Ingram later changed his plea to guilty, admitting to first-degree reckless homicide and firearm possession by a felon. On the 4th of October 2024, Judge Michelle Havas sentenced him to 45 years in prison and 20 years of extended supervision. She rejected his self-defense claim, saying, "I don't believe you for 1 second." This was a cold-blooded execution of a man who worked 33 years for crappy wages, because it's what he could do. The victim's sister, Pamela, said softly, "His voice haunts me, I imagine his agony." From this tragedy come harsh reminders: never reveal personal finances at work, stay aware of behavioral changes around money, and report early signs of resentment. Sometimes safety means silence, not trust. Greed may whisper softly, but its echo destroys everything it touches. Number 5. Theodore Malcolm Edgecomb. It began as an ordinary drive across Milwaukee's Holton Street Bridge, until one brief encounter spiraled into tragedy that would divide an entire city. On the 22nd of September 2020, 32-year-old Theodore Malcolm Edgecomb, a bicyclist, crossed paths with 54-year-old immigration attorney Jason Clearman. What began as a traffic altercation turned into a deadly confrontation. Edgecomb, who was black, was later accused of shooting Clearman, who was white, once between the eyes. Prosecutors charged him with first-degree intentional homicide. The confrontation started when Edgecomb allegedly veered into traffic, causing Clearman's wife, Evangelina, to swerve. Words were exchanged. Edgecomb claimed Clearman shouted a racial slur. Evangelina denied it. Anger escalated quickly. Edgecomb approached the couple's car at a stoplight and punched Clearman through the open window, knocking off his glasses. He then rode away on his bike. The Clearmans followed. Surveillance footage captured their SUV trailing Edgecomb onto the Holton Street Bridge. There, Jason Clearman exited the vehicle and approached Edgecomb. What happened next took just seconds. Prosecutors said Edgecomb drew a handgun and fired one shot at close range. Clearman collapsed instantly. He was legally intoxicated at the time and carried a folding knife, though there was no evidence he ever drew it. Edgecomb fled the scene, disappeared down a flight of stairs, and later left Wisconsin. Investigators never recovered the gun, but Edgecomb's 6 months on the run became central to the prosecution's case. He altered his appearance and gave police a fake name before being arrested. Prosecutors argued that his flight showed consciousness of guilt. Edgecomb also faced additional charges for possessing a firearm illegally while on bail for domestic battery and drunk driving. During the trial, Edgecomb's attorneys argued that he acted out of fear, believing Clearman was pursuing him aggressively. He testified that the gun just went off, but the jury rejected that claim. Prosecutor Grant Hubner said he brought a gun to a fistfight. The defense accused Judge David Borowski of bias, arguing that the court's tone mirrored racial disparities seen in other self-defense cases, such as that of Kyle Rittenhouse. On the 26th of January 2022, the jury found Edgecomb guilty of the lesser charge of first-degree reckless homicide. At sentencing, Judge Borowski imposed 25 years in prison and 12 years of extended supervision. This was not an accident, the judge said. Had you obeyed the order not to carry a gun, this would have been a fistfight, not a homicide. Jason Clearman's wife described her life as forever destroyed, while Edgecomb's grandmother said the punishment ignored his humanity. He's not a killer, he's a scared young man. From this case emerge lasting warnings. Small acts of rage can spiral into irreversible outcomes. Firearms magnify momentary anger into lifelong loss, and fleeing from accountability only deepens guilt. Awareness, restraint, and empathy remain the strongest safeguards in a world where tempers ignite too easily. In one flash of fury, 2 families lost everything, proof that seconds of anger can outlive a lifetime. Number 6. Andrez D. Martina. It began before dawn on a quiet Milwaukee street, when the sound of rage drowned out every trace of mercy. In August 2021, 53-year-old Andrez D. Martina brutally murdered his grandson, Andre Smith II, inside his home. The alleged reason was both trivial and tragic. Martina believed the boy had stolen money from his wallet. What followed was one of the most shocking child homicide cases in Wisconsin's recent history. Martina had just moved back to Milwaukee that May, hoping, he said, to reconnect with his grandsons. But on the night of August 28, the visit turned into a nightmare. Around 3 a.m., Martina claimed to have noticed missing cash. He woke Andre and demanded the truth. When the boy emptied his pockets, Martina snapped. He admitted to police that he lost control and that he had warned the children before, "If you lie or steal, I'll kill you." The attack began in the bedroom and stretched over 5 hours. Andre's disabled great-grandmother, forced to watch, told investigators it lasted an hour to an hour and a half. Martina used anything within reach, a mallet, a cane, a belt, and finally a sledgehammer. Andre tried to escape twice, once running outside and another time locking himself in the bathroom. Martina kicked in the door and dragged him out, beating him until the walls cracked. When the boy's small body went limp, Martina shoved him into the shower to wash away the blood. At 8:24 a.m., he texted the boy's grandmother, "He's bleeding." When relatives arrived, they found Martina covered in blood, pulling Andre's lifeless body into the kitchen. Blood and brain matter streaked the walls. The brothers survived, battered and bleeding, with a fractured finger and head wounds. During questioning, Martina confessed to the beating but insisted he didn't remember using the sledgehammer. He also revealed a chilling past, convicted of homicide by reckless conduct in 1990. Methamphetamine, marijuana, and a gun were later found in the home. Prosecutors called the crime an unspeakable level of evil. In court, Martina claimed self-defense, alleging his grandson had pointed a gun at him, an argument the judge called absurd. In May 2022, Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Stephanie Rothstein found him guilty on all 5 felony counts, including first-degree intentional homicide. On June 6, she sentenced him to 2 consecutive life terms without parole, plus 23 additional years. When Martina blamed the dark cloud over Milwaukee, Judge Rothstein replied coldly, "Shame on you. That's a coward's way out." Andre's mother, Martina, stood outside the courthouse and said, "It's only right he never sees the light beyond prison walls. The system failed my son once, it won't again." This case forces a painful reckoning. Unchecked anger turns homes into crime scenes, history repeats when violence goes unhealed, and ignoring early warning signs costs lives. Every child deserves safety stronger than silence. Because when protection fails, innocence pays the highest price, and it never gets a second chance. Number 7. Christopher Stokes. It started with a voice too calm for what it carried, a man telling a 911 dispatcher, "I just massacred my whole family." On the 27th of April 2020, Milwaukee police were sent to a home near North 12th Street and Hadley after 2 back-to-back calls from 43-year-old Christopher Stokes. In both, he identified himself and repeated the same words, as if confirming what he could not undo: "I just killed my whole family with my Mossberg." Inside the small duplex, officers found 5 victims. All were members of Stokes's family: Teresa Thomas, Marcus Stokes, Lakeitha Stokes, Tara A.G., and Demetrius Thomas. They had each been shot with a 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun. 4 were hit multiple times. Teresa Thomas died from a single shot to the chest. A 3-year-old child, Stokes's grandson, survived, telling police that his grandfather had pointed the gun at him before stopping when he begged, "Don't hurt me." When officers arrived, Stokes was sitting quietly on the front steps. Asked if he had heard gunshots, he answered, "Yeah, I didn't hear them, I did." Upstairs, detectives discovered 12 spent shotgun shells scattered throughout the rooms, 5 bodies, and the shotgun lying on the floor. Marcus Stokes was found in the living room. The other 4 were grouped together in a back bedroom. No note, no signs of struggle, no clear motive. Court records revealed that Stokes was a convicted felon, previously charged with substantial battery in 2007, making it illegal for him to possess a gun. Investigators later confirmed that he had sought mental health treatment weeks earlier, though therapy sessions had shifted to phone calls after the pandemic began. 2 psychiatric evaluations found him competent, and no evidence supported an insanity defense. In June 2021, Stokes pleaded guilty to 5 counts of first-degree reckless homicide and 1 count of illegal firearm possession. During sentencing that July, Milwaukee County Judge Michelle Havis imposed the maximum, 205 years in prison, plus 105 years of extended supervision. Stokes, now 44, told the court, "Woke up and just had blood on my mind, something wasn't going right, I did the ultimate sin, I deserve everything I get. I'm not asking for leniency." In court, his sister shouted through tears, "Why, Chris? Why?" He could only shake his head and say he didn't know. Outside, candles flickered around a sign that read "Love 5, a memorial to the 5 lost lives." Family members struggled with grief and contradiction, hatred for his actions but remnants of love for the man they once knew. "This wasn't just murder," said family friend Catherine Summerall, "it was the destruction of generations." From this tragedy emerge painful lessons. Untreated mental decline can erupt without warning, firearms in the wrong hands multiply devastation, and silence often precedes catastrophe. Recognizing instability, securing weapons, and breaking the silence are small acts that prevent enormous loss. Because the most haunting tragedies are not those we don't see coming, but those we see and choose to ignore. Number 8. Ashanti Davis. It began with a coded whisper over a jail phone, words meant to conceal a deadly plan that was already in motion. In November 2024, 25-year-old Ashanti Davis from Milwaukee was charged with orchestrating the murder of her former boyfriend, 29-year-old Bre'nee Hall, during what prosecutors described as a staged robbery. The two shared a volatile relationship marked by years of tension, tragedy, and loss. Just weeks before the murder, their infant had died at birth. According to prosecutors, Davis wanted Hall permanently out of the picture. The shooting took place near 87th and Carmen around 1:20 a.m. on November 1. Davis and Hall were sitting together in a car when 2 masked men appeared. She later told police that the men ordered them to lie down and empty their pockets. As she ran, she claimed to hear a single gunshot. When officers arrived, Hall was dead, shot multiple times. Investigators found cash still clutched in his hand. Nothing had been stolen. Davis was untouched. The key to unraveling the plot was already waiting on a hard drive. Between October 28 and 31, days before the murder, Davis had spoken repeatedly with an inmate at Racine Correctional Institution, a man she was romantically involved with. In one call, she said, "Baby daddy, boom, pop, boom." In another, she bragged, "I got a cat to kill the rat," adding that she had to speak in riddles because the call is monitored. The day before the shooting, she warned that it's going to happen real soon. After Hall's death, she called the same inmate again. "They killed him," she said, to which the man replied, "That's what you wanted." Davis quickly scolded him, "Why would you say that on a recorded call?" But it was too late. The recordings became the foundation of the case against her. Detectives confronted her in late December, presenting the audio evidence. Davis admitted the voice was hers, but stumbled through an explanation, denying any plan to kill Hall. She was arrested on December 31, charged with solicitation of first-degree intentional homicide. The shooters remain unidentified, though prosecutors said digital forensics could eventually link them. In April 2025, Davis entered a no-contest plea, accepting conviction without admitting guilt. During her sentencing on June 25, Milwaukee County Judge Jeffrey A. Wagner called the act premeditated and cruel. He sentenced her to 7.5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of extended supervision, the maximum allowed under the plea. Davis said quietly, "I apologize. I take accountability as a grown woman. I'm sorry to the family." Hall's mother, Nicole Hall, told reporters she had warned her son she wasn't right. "I could feel it in my soul." His sister, Diane, described seeing Davis at the scene with an evil look, no remorse, nothing. This case underscores harsh truths. Every word on a monitored line can become a confession, emotional obsession can evolve into violence, and betrayal often wears a familiar face. Because in the end, silence doesn't protect the guilty, it records them. Number 9, Armier McArthur, Keyshaun McNealy, and Damain Patrick. It started with a craving for pizza and ended with a man dead in the street. On the cold night of the 10th of January 2024, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 33-year-old Domino's delivery driver Antoine Bonji Jr. was shot and killed while delivering an order on North Sherman Boulevard. The people accused of killing him weren't hardened criminals or career offenders. They were 3 young people, Armier McArthur, Keyshaun McNealy, and Damain Patrick. The motive, prosecutors said, was to snatch a free pizza. The night began with a plan that seemed petty but reckless. Inside a house on the city's north side, the 3 teens sat around with a friend, identified as AW. They joked about placing an order and stealing it. At 9:47 p.m., the order went through. Around 10 p.m., G arrived wearing his Domino's uniform, carrying the pizza bag. Video footage later captured what followed, 3 figures dressed in black approaching him. A brief scuffle broke out, then gunfire. Witnesses heard 6 shots echo through the neighborhood. One described seeing 3 young males running westbound between homes. G lay in the street, shot 3 times. When officers arrived, the pizza receipt lay beside him. The bag was gone. Minutes later, the teens burst back into AW's home like wild animals, according to one witness. One of them carried the stolen pizza bag. They turned off the lights and hid until AW's father demanded they leave. Detectives used the pizza receipt to trace the order back to a specific Domino's store and, through its digital records, to a man on parole who had ordered several pizzas to the same address in the past 2 months. His cousin, AW, provided the breakthrough, telling police that McArthur, McNealy, and Patrick had planned the robbery and returned afterward with the bag. Using photo lineups, investigators identified all 3. Each was arrested and charged with felony murder. In February 2024, the teenagers pleaded not guilty. But as the evidence mounted, including surveillance footage and witness testimony, they changed their pleas to guilty that September. In November 2024, Milwaukee County Judge David Swanson sentenced each of them to 17 years in prison, followed by 6 years of extended supervision. At sentencing, G's family filled the courtroom. His sister, Kashmir Tolliver, described him as the guy with the smile that made everyone's day. His uncle, Jerome Avery Sr., said through tears, "You took away a good one for nothing. You ruined your lives and ours." His mother, Patrice Tolliver, wrote online that while the media called him just a pizza man, to them, he was the backbone. G had worked as a truck driver, a landlord, and an investor and dreamed of flying planes. He did fly once, his sister said softly, and now he's flying high. This tragedy serves as a brutal reminder of how impulsive decisions can end in irreversible loss. A few reckless minutes destroyed 6 lives, the victims and the perpetrators. Every crime, no matter how small, carries the potential to spiral beyond control. Because when a moment of foolishness meets a loaded gun, no one walks away unscarred. Number 10, Bre'nee Veasley, Earl Williams III. Isiah Daniels and Jardan Anderson. Beneath the neon glow of a Milwaukee strip mall, laughter from a summer party was replaced by the thunder of gunfire. On the night of the 20th of June 2025, outside a venue near 82nd Street and Brown Deer Road, what began as a social gathering descended into chaos. In less than 20 seconds, 110 bullets were fired from 11 different guns. When the echoes faded, 19-year-old Bre'nee Veasley, a college student and aspiring nurse, was dead, along with Kingston Lipford. 3 others were wounded. Investigators would later describe the scene as resembling a Wild West-style shootout. Witnesses recalled a brief encounter between 2 groups in the parking lot, one that escalated without warning. Surveillance footage and police records identified 3 suspects, Earl Williams III, Isiah Daniels, and Jardan Anderson. Williams, prosecutors say, carried a Glock modified with a switch, an illegal device that converts a handgun into a fully automatic machine gun. That night, Daniels and Williams had arrived with several companions in a car driven by Anderson. As others exited the vehicle, Veasley and her friends crossed paths with them. A witness remembered asking one of the men to put his gun away, saying it was scaring her. Moments later, automatic gunfire broke out. Daniels later claimed someone shouted, "Don't shoot," but the first bursts had already begun. Williams allegedly told investigators he believed a rival group had shown up with weapons, prompting him to fire. Prosecutors, however, determined from forensic evidence that the first shots came from Williams's position. Clustered near where Veasley and Lipford fell, investigators recovered 58 shell casings from 7 guns. Forensic analysis later confirmed that 13 of those casings had been fired from Williams's Glock. When the shooting stopped, Veasley lay fatally wounded, struck in the back. Lipford was also found dead, a gun still in his hand. Daniels told detectives that Anderson drove him away, but they soon returned to collect Williams and others. They gathered the weapons, hid them in a bag, and spray-painted the getaway car blue to evade police. 17 days later, Williams was arrested after crashing into a squad car during a separate weapons call. Officers recovered the same Glock with the illegal switch where he had been sitting, linking him directly to the scene. He was charged with felony murder, attempted intentional homicide, and possession of a machine gun. Anderson and Daniels were charged with aiding a felon. For Veasley's family, the loss was unbearable. Her cousin, Brianna Austin, said, "She did everything right, and still, she didn't make it home." A GoFundMe page described her as a light in every room and condemned the fragile egos and unchecked violence that ended her life. From the tragedy, 3 lessons stand clear: anger multiplies faster than reason, illegal gun modifications turn disputes into mass chaos, and one impulsive decision can destroy countless futures. Because once a bullet leaves the chamber, there's no taking back what it shatters. Each story reveals a truth few want to face: monsters aren't born in shadows, they grow in plain sight, behind smiles, inside homes, beneath the city's quiet hum. But this is only the beginning. There are more untold cases, more voices buried beneath headlines, and more questions about justice still waiting for answers. And if you want to uncover what lies beyond the verdicts, subscribe to Justice Reversed, hit the bell icon, and be the first to witness the next descent into darkness.